The wrestling arena was filled with loud cheers and flashing lights. Music echoed through the air as people stood from their seats and waved their hands. The ring in the center shined under strong white lights. It felt like a place full of power and excitement. For most people, it was a night of fun. For a young girl named Mila, it was a night of fear. Mila sat in the last row of the arena, close to the stairs. She was small for her age and wore a simple blue dress that had been washed many times. Her hands rested tightly in her lap. She kept her eyes on the ring, but her mind was somewhere else. Beside her sat her stepdad Ron, a tall man with a hard face and a restless look. He kept tapping his foot and checking his phone. His jaw was tight, and his eyes showed anger. Mila knew this mood very well. When Ron looked like this, silence was safer than words. She stayed still and tried not to move. She told herself the show would end soon and everything would be fine. The crowd suddenly grew louder as two wrestlers clashed in the ring. Mila jumped slightly at the noise. She liked watching wrestling on television because it felt far away from real life. In the ring, fights had rules, and people always stood back up again. It felt safer than home. Ron suddenly grabbed her wrist. It was quick and sharp. Not enough for others to notice, but enough for Mila's heart to race. She looked up at him. His eyes were cold, and his grip was firm. He leaned closer and spoke in a low voice that made her chest feel tight. Mila did not answer. She only nodded, hoping that would calm him. Ron stood up from his seat. That moment changed everything. Mila felt a wave of fear wash over her. She knew she could not follow him. She also knew she could not stay. Her eyes moved fast across the crowd. People were standing, cheering, laughing. No one was looking at her. Her heart beat louder than the music. Before she could stop herself, Mila pulled her hand free and ran. She moved fast down the steps, her shoes hitting the floor hard. She did not look back. She did not know where she was going. She only knew she had to get away. Her breath came fast as she pushed through a group of people near the floor seats. Someone shouted in surprise, but the noise of the arena swallowed the sound. Security guards stood near the entrance, watching the crowd and the ring. Mila kept her head down and ran past them. The bright lights made her eyes sting. Her legs felt weak, but she kept moving. Near the ring, she saw a long table covered with papers, bottles, and wires. Men wearing headsets spoke into microphones. The table looked like part of the show, busy and important. Without thinking, Mila dropped to the floor and slid underneath it. The space under the table was dark and tight. Dust covered the floor. Mila pulled her knees to her chest and hugged them. Her breathing was loud in her ears. She pressed one hand over her mouth to stay quiet. Her whole body shook. From under the table, she could only see feet and shadows moving back and forth. The sounds above her were sharp and fast. Voices spoke into microphones. The crowd kept shouting. The ring shook with every heavy move. Mila tried to slow her breathing. Moments later, she saw shoes she recognized. Ron's shoes stopped close to the table. Mila's heart felt like it would break out of her chest. She closed her eyes and stayed completely still. She could hear his voice nearby, angry and confused. He asked someone if they had seen a girl. The answer was lost in the noise. Ron stood there for a few seconds. Each second felt like a long minute to Mila. Her hands were cold. Her fingers hurt from gripping her dress too tightly. Then everything changed. A loud crash shook the floor. A wrestler had been thrown out of the ring and landed near the table. The impact was strong. The crowd screamed with excitement. The table rattled above Mila's head. Ron stepped back quickly, surprised by the sudden action. His attention moved to the ring. After another moment, his shoes turned away and disappeared into the crowd. Mila did not move. She stayed hidden, afraid that any sound might bring him back. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. She listened to the noise above her, waiting. The wrestler who had fallen stood up near the table. He was tall and broad, with a calm but serious face. His name was Leo, a well-known wrestler admired for his strength and respect for others. He leaned against the table to catch his breath. Leo placed one hand on the edge of the table. The table moved slightly. Mila froze. Leo felt something shift beneath his hand. His eyes narrowed, not in anger but in focus. He leaned down slowly, careful not to draw attention. He knocked gently on the table once. No answer. He knocked again, softer this time. Under the table, Mila's breath stopped. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to stay hidden forever. Her eyes met Leo's through the dark space. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Leo's expression changed. His tough look softened when he saw the fear in her eyes. He raised one finger to his lips, telling her to stay quiet. Mila nodded slowly. Leo straightened up and looked around. The match continued, and the crowd remained loud. No one noticed what was happening near the table. Leo tapped the table lightly again, then spoke into his microphone as if nothing was wrong. His voice stayed calm and normal. Only Mila knew the message was for her. She was not alone anymore. And for the first time that night, Mila felt a small spark of hope inside her chest. Leo stood near the table, keeping his body relaxed so no one would suspect anything strange. The match continued in the ring, and the crowd remained loud. Mila stayed hidden under the table, her eyes fixed on Leo's shoes. Her heart was still beating fast, but the fear slowly began to change into confusion. Leo spoke into his microphone, describing the match as if nothing unusual was happening. His voice was calm and steady. At the same time, he shifted his position slightly, blocking the view under the table from the crowd side. It was a small movement, but it made Mila feel safer. Mila stayed very still. The dark space under the table felt less scary now. She could hear Leo breathing above her. It was strong and steady. That sound alone made her feel a little calmer. The match ended a few minutes later. Music played loudly again, and the crowd stood up to cheer. Workers moved quickly around the ring to prepare for the next segment. One of the men at the table bent down to pick up a bottle, and almost saw Mila. Leo noticed it immediately. He stepped closer and dropped his towel on purpose. As the man stood back up, Leo waved him away and said something about needing space. The man nodded and walked off without questioning it. Mila watched all of this with wide eyes. She did not understand why a famous wrestler would help her, but she was grateful. When things became slightly quieter, Leo crouched down and leaned closer to the table. He spoke softly, keeping his mouth close to the edge so only Mila could hear him. "You are safe here," he said in a low voice. "Do not move yet." Mila nodded, even though he could not fully see her face. She hugged her knees again and waited. Minutes passed slowly. Another match started, pulling the crowd's attention back to the ring. Leo stayed close to the table, pretending to stretch and rest between moments. Every time someone came near, he shifted his body to keep Mila hidden. Finally, when the noise dropped just a little, Leo bent down again. "What is your name?" he asked quietly. "Mila," she whispered. Her voice shook, but she forced herself to speak. Leo nodded. "Mila, my name is Leo. I am going to help you. You just need to trust me." Mila swallowed hard. Trust was not easy for her. But something in Leo's eyes made her believe him. She nodded again. "Is someone looking for you?" Leo asked. Mila hesitated. Then she nodded slowly. Leo did not push her to say more. He only said, "You did the right thing by hiding." Those words meant more to Mila than he could know. Leo stood up and looked toward the side of the arena where staff members moved in and out. He caught the attention of a woman wearing a headset and a badge. Her name was Nina, one of the event coordinators. Leo signaled for her to come closer. Nina walked over, slightly confused. Leo leaned toward her and spoke quietly but clearly. His tone was serious. Nina's expression changed as she listened. She looked down at the table, then back at Leo, and nodded without asking questions. Nina moved quickly but calmly. She spoke to a security guard nearby, a man named Sam, who was known for being careful and kind. Sam listened closely and followed Nina without hesitation. Leo bent down one more time and spoke to Mila. "Mila, 2 people are coming to help us. They are safe," he said. Mila felt nervous again, but she trusted Leo. She nodded. Nina crouched down slowly and gently lifted the edge of the tablecloth. Her face softened when she saw Mila's frightened eyes. "Hi Mila," Nina said softly. "You are not in trouble. We are here to help you." Mila stayed quiet but nodded. Sam positioned himself so his body blocked the view from the crowd. Nina carefully held out her hand. "When you are ready, you can come with me," Nina said. Mila looked at Leo one last time. He gave her a small nod and a reassuring smile. Mila reached out and took Nina's hand. Slowly, Mila crawled out from under the table. The bright lights made her blink. She felt exposed for a moment, but Sam quickly draped a jacket around her shoulders. It was warm and smelled clean. They guided Mila away from the table and toward a hallway behind the stage. The noise of the crowd faded as they moved farther from the ring. Mila's legs felt weak, but Nina stayed close, holding her hand the entire time. Once inside a quiet room, Nina closed the door gently. The room was small but comfortable, with chairs, water bottles, and soft lighting. Sam stood near the door, watching the hallway through a small window. Mila sat down and took a deep breath. Her whole body shook as the fear she had been holding back finally started to release. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Nina knelt in front of her. "You are safe now," she said again. Mila nodded and wiped her eyes with the sleeve of the jacket. "Can you tell us who you came with tonight?" Nina asked gently. Mila looked down at her hands. Her fingers twisted together. "My stepdad," she said quietly. "His name is Ron." Sam and Nina exchanged a serious look. "Is he here in the building?" Sam asked. Mila nodded again. Nina placed a comforting hand on Mila's shoulder. "Thank you for telling us. You were very brave." Mila did not feel brave. She felt tired. But hearing those words made her feel a little stronger. Outside the room, Leo stood near the hallway entrance, watching security carefully check the area. His face was calm, but his eyes showed concern. He stayed there, making sure no one approached the room without permission. Inside, Mila sipped water and tried to calm her breathing. For the first time that night, she felt like the world had slowed down. She did not know what would happen next. But she knew one thing. Running toward the ring had saved her. And the night was far from over. The quiet room felt very different from the loud arena outside. The walls were light gray, and the soft hum of air filled the space. Mila sat on a chair with the jacket wrapped around her shoulders. Her hands held a paper cup of water. She took small sips, trying to calm herself. Nina sat across from her, keeping her voice gentle and slow. Sam remained near the door, standing tall and alert. He did not look angry. He looked careful. "You are doing very well," Nina said. "You are safe here." Mila nodded. She believed it, but part of her still felt tense. Fear did not leave quickly. It stayed inside, waiting. Nina asked simple questions. How old was Mila? Where did she live? Did she have any family members she trusted? Mila answered quietly. Her voice became steadier with each question. Speaking felt hard, but it also felt like letting go of something heavy. Leo stood outside the room, speaking softly with another staff member. He kept checking the hallway. He did not want Ron anywhere near Mila. Every few minutes, he looked through the small window to make sure she was okay. Inside the room, Nina listened carefully as Mila explained her life in simple words. Mila talked about school. She talked about liking books and drawing. She talked about feeling scared when voices became loud at home. She never used harsh words. She did not need to. Sam listened closely. His face showed concern, but he stayed calm. He nodded when Mila finished speaking. "Thank you for telling us," Sam said. "You did the right thing by running to a public place." Mila looked down at her cup. "I did not know where to go," she said. "That is okay," Nina replied. "You followed your instincts." A soft knock came at the door. Sam opened it slightly. A woman named Grace stood outside. She wore a simple uniform and carried a small folder. She worked with child support services connected to event security. Nina invited her in. Grace smiled warmly at Mila and knelt so they were at the same level. "Hi Mila. I am here to help you. Nothing bad will happen to you here." Mila studied Grace's face. It looked kind. She nodded slowly. Grace spoke with Nina and Sam quietly. They shared information calmly and clearly. Everything was handled step by step. No one rushed. No one raised their voice. Meanwhile, Leo spoke with the main security team near the entrance of the arena. Ron had been asking questions and looking around, growing more upset when he could not find Mila. Security noticed his behavior and kept their distance while observing him. Leo explained what he had seen and what Mila had told them. Security took it seriously. They began checking cameras and speaking to witnesses near the seating area. Back in the quiet room, Grace asked Mila one final question. "Is there any adult you feel safe with? A teacher? A relative? Anyone?" Mila thought for a long moment. "My Aunt Lena," she said. "She is kind. She listens." Grace smiled. "That is very helpful." Grace made a phone call while Nina stayed with Mila. Sam stepped outside to update the security team. The plan was clear. Mila would not be leaving with Ron tonight. Mila felt a strange mix of feelings. Relief, fear, confusion, hope. She had never been in a situation like this before. But for the first time, adults were listening to her. After some time, Nina brought Mila a small snack. Mila had not realized how hungry she was until then. She ate slowly, feeling her strength return. Leo finally entered the room. He moved carefully, making sure Mila was comfortable seeing him again. When she noticed him, her face softened. Leo gave a small smile. "Hey Mila. You did great out there." Mila looked up. "Thank you," she said. Leo nodded. "You were very brave." Mila did not know how to answer that. She only hugged the jacket tighter. Grace returned with good news. "Your Aunt Lena is on her way," she said. "She will be here soon." Mila's eyes widened. "Really?" Grace nodded. "Yes. She is worried about you and wants to see you." Tears filled Mila's eyes again, but this time they were not only from fear. They were from relief. Outside the room, security informed Nina that Ron had been escorted out of the arena. He was no longer allowed inside. He did not know where Mila was, and he would not be given that information. Nina returned to Mila and spoke gently. "You do not need to worry about him right now." Mila took a deep breath. Her shoulders relaxed slightly for the first time that night. Time passed slowly, but it felt different now. It felt safe. The noise of the arena faded as the event came to an end. The crowd began leaving. The building grew quieter. Finally, the door opened again. A woman rushed in, her eyes wide with concern. She had warm eyes and tired hands. "Mila," she called. Mila stood up so fast the chair slid backward. "Aunt Lena," she cried. They hugged tightly. Lena held Mila close and did not let go for a long moment. She whispered comforting words into Mila's hair. Nina and Grace explained everything calmly to Lena. Lena listened carefully, her face serious. She thanked everyone again and again. Leo watched quietly from the side. He felt relieved seeing Mila safe in her aunt's arms. He did not need praise. Seeing that moment was enough. Before leaving, Mila looked at Leo. She walked over and hugged him quickly. "Thank you for seeing me," she said. Leo smiled softly. "I am glad you were there." Mila and Lena left the building together, guided by Grace. The night air felt cool and calm. Leo stayed behind, thinking about how one small moment under a table had changed everything. Sometimes, strength was not about fighting. Sometimes, it was about noticing someone who needed help. The car ride away from the arena felt quiet and slow. City lights passed by the window as Mila sat beside her Aunt Lena in the back seat. Lena kept one arm around Mila's shoulders, holding her close as if she might disappear if she let go. Mila leaned into her, feeling warmth and safety she had not felt in a long time. Mila did not speak much during the ride. Her mind replayed the night again and again. The loud crowd. The dark space under the table. Leo's calm eyes. Each memory felt heavy, but they no longer felt sharp. Lena did not ask many questions. She understood that Mila needed time. When they reached Lena's small apartment, the lights were already on. The place smelled like clean soap and warm food. Lena helped Mila inside and locked the door gently behind them. The sound of the lock made Mila breathe easier. "You are home now," Lena said softly. Mila nodded and slipped off her shoes. Lena gave her a soft blanket and guided her to the couch. Mila curled up, hugging the blanket close. Lena brought her a glass of water and sat beside her. "You do not have to talk tonight," Lena said. "You can rest." Mila looked at Lena and nodded again. Her eyes felt heavy, and her body felt tired in a way she had never known before. Lena stayed beside her until Mila fell asleep. That night, Mila slept deeply. The next morning, sunlight filled the apartment. Birds chirped outside the window. Mila opened her eyes slowly and sat up. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. She was safe. Lena was already awake, making breakfast. The smell of toast filled the air. Mila walked into the kitchen quietly. "Good morning," Lena said with a gentle smile. "Good morning," Mila replied. They ate together at the small table. Lena kept her voice calm and steady. She explained that people who help children would be coming later to talk. Mila listened carefully. She felt nervous, but Lena promised to stay with her the whole time. Later that day, Grace arrived with another helper named Owen. They sat together in the living room. The atmosphere was calm. No one rushed. No one spoke loudly. Grace explained what would happen next in simple words. Mila would stay with Lena for now. People would make sure she stayed safe. Mila would not be forced to go anywhere she did not want to go. Mila asked one question. "Will I have to see Ron?" Grace shook her head gently. "Not right now." That answer was enough. Across the city, Leo woke up in his hotel room. The event was over, but his mind was still busy. He thought about Mila and hoped she was safe. He did not regret getting involved. Some things mattered more than the spotlight. Leo checked his phone and saw a message from Nina. It was short but comforting. Mila was safe with family. Everything was being handled properly. Leo leaned back and closed his eyes. A quiet sense of relief settled in his chest. Days passed. Mila started going to school from Lena's apartment. The first few days were hard. Loud noises still made her flinch. Sudden movements made her tense. But each day got a little easier. Lena stayed patient. She listened. She never pushed Mila to speak before she was ready. In the evenings, they cooked together or watched simple shows. Sometimes they drew pictures at the table. Mila began drawing again. She drew the wrestling ring. She drew the table. She drew a tall figure standing between her and the world. She did not write names, but Lena understood. One afternoon, a letter arrived in the mail. It was addressed to Mila. Lena opened it carefully and read it first. Then she handed it to Mila. It was from Leo. The letter was simple. Leo wrote that he hoped Mila was doing well. He wrote that she was brave and that she reminded him why being strong mattered. He told her to keep drawing and to believe in herself. Mila read the letter slowly. Her hands shook slightly, but her face softened into a small smile. She folded the letter neatly and placed it inside her notebook. That night, Mila slept peacefully again. Weeks passed. Life began to settle into a new rhythm. Mila laughed more. She spoke more at school. Her teachers noticed the change and supported her. One evening, Lena asked Mila if she wanted to attend a small community event. It was nothing loud or crowded. Just people, music, and food in the park. Mila hesitated, then nodded. At the park, Mila stayed close to Lena. The air was warm, and lights hung between trees. Families sat on blankets. Children played nearby. Everything felt calm. Suddenly, Mila noticed a familiar figure in the distance. Leo stood near a booth, dressed casually, talking with a few people. He was there for a community visit, something he often did quietly. Mila froze. Lena followed her gaze. "Do you want to say hello?" Lena asked gently. Mila thought for a moment. Then she nodded. They walked over slowly. Leo noticed them and turned. When he saw Mila, his face lit up with recognition and relief. "Hi, Mila," he said warmly. "Hi," Mila replied. They spoke for a few minutes. Nothing serious. Just simple words. Leo told her he liked her drawings. Mila told him she felt better now. Before leaving, Leo bent slightly and said, "I am proud of you." Mila smiled. As the sun set, Mila walked home with Lena, holding her hand. The world still felt big and sometimes scary, but it no longer felt empty. Mila had learned something important. Help could come from unexpected places, and courage could begin in the smallest spaces. Time continued to move forward, slow but steady. Each new day brought Mila a little more strength. Life at her Aunt Lena's home became familiar and warm. The apartment felt smaller than her old place, but it felt lighter. The silence there was peaceful, not tense. Mila settled into a routine. She woke up early for school. She helped Lena prepare breakfast. She walked to class with her backpack bouncing lightly against her shoulders. At school, she made a new friend named Noor, a quiet girl who loved drawing just as much as she did. They sat together during breaks and shared pencils and stories. Mila still had moments when fear returned. Loud sounds made her pause. Sudden anger in voices made her heart beat faster. But now, she had words for her feelings. She had people who listened. Lena never brushed her worries aside. She always listened with patience and care. Grace and Owen continued to check in. They spoke with Mila kindly and explained everything in ways she could understand. They made sure she felt safe and respected. Mila learned that asking for help was not weakness. It was courage. One afternoon, Mila brought home a paper from school. It announced an art event. Students could submit drawings to be displayed at a small community hall. Mila stared at the paper for a long time. "Do you want to enter?" Lena asked. Mila hesitated. Her drawings felt personal. They held memories. But Lena smiled and said, "Your story matters." That night, Mila chose one drawing. It showed a large table, strong legs holding it up. Underneath, a small figure sat safely. Above the table stood a tall figure with calm eyes, blocking the outside world. Around them, light filled the space. Mila worked carefully, adding details. She did not rush. When she finished, she felt proud. The day of the art event arrived. Lena walked with Mila to the hall. The room was filled with drawings of all kinds. Landscapes, families, dreams. Mila's drawing hung on one wall among many others. People stopped to look at it. Some nodded quietly. Others smiled. No one asked questions. Mila liked that. The drawing spoke on its own. Later that evening, a familiar voice said her name. Mila. She turned around. Leo stood a few steps away. He wore simple clothes and a calm smile. Nina stood beside him, holding a cup of tea. I heard about the event, Leo said. I wanted to see your work. Mila felt shy, but she smiled. It is over there, she said, pointing. Leo looked at the drawing for a long moment. His expression grew thoughtful. Then he nodded slowly. You are very talented, he said. And very strong. Mila looked at the floor. I was scared. Leo nodded. Being scared does not cancel bravery. Those words stayed with her. As the evening ended, Mila walked home with Lena. The sky was dark, but the streetlights glowed softly. Mila held Lena's hand, feeling steady. Weeks later, school ended for the term. Summer arrived. Mila spent more time drawing and reading. She helped Lena plant small flowers on the balcony. Watching them grow made her feel hopeful. One day, Mila received another letter. This one invited her to attend a small wrestling event with Lena as a guest. The letter explained that the event would be quiet and safe, with special seating away from crowds. Mila read the letter twice. Do I have to go? She asked. Lena shook her head. Only if you want to. Mila thought carefully. The arena once held fear. But it also held the moment when her life changed. She wanted to face it again, on her own terms. I want to go, Mila said. The night of the event felt different from before. They arrived early. The lights were softer. The seats were comfortable and quiet. Mila sat beside Lena, holding a small notebook. When Leo entered the ring, the crowd clapped. Mila watched calmly. She did not hide. She did not run. She stayed seated and steady. During a break, Leo looked toward the seats and saw Mila. He smiled and placed a hand over his heart in respect. Mila smiled back. She realized something important in that moment. The fear no longer controlled her. After the event, Mila and Lena walked outside. The night air was cool and gentle. Mila looked up at the sky, full of stars. I feel different, Mila said. Lena squeezed her hand. That is growth. Mila nodded. Months passed. Mila grew taller. Her voice grew stronger. She spoke more freely. She laughed more often. She learned that healing did not mean forgetting. It meant moving forward with support. One evening, Mila sat at her desk and opened her notebook. She began to write. Not just draw. Write. She wrote about a girl who hid under a table. She wrote about fear and hope. She wrote about kindness from strangers and strength found within. She did not use big words. She used honest ones. When she finished, she closed the notebook and smiled. Mila understood now. Her story did not end under a table. That moment was the beginning. A beginning of safety. A beginning of trust. A beginning of a future built on courage and care. And as Mila turned off the light and climbed into bed, she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer hiding. She was living.